Bob, you're very welcome to ScaleX Insider Podcast. I am absolutely delighted and thrilled to have you on the show today.
It's an honor to have a chance to share a message with leaders like you from around the world.
Oh, thank you, Bob. And we've already had a great conversation off air, so I'm really excited about this. We've been chatting about our vision, which is to inspire, connect, and enable millions of ambitious leaders of small and medium-sized enterprises to scale with purpose. Bob, so as I kick off the show with this question to all my guests, what does scaling with purpose mean to you?
I would say to you, our responsibility as leaders is to see those people in our span of care as our purpose, and so to scale, which we would think of as growing. Okay, I think you're either growing or you're dying. So I think every organization, for vibrancy, to create a future for the people you invite into it, needs to be growing. If it's not growing, we're depriving our people of the challenge, the opportunity for growth, because growth is a sign of vitality, just physically of growth, but mental growth. Because again, growth is not just numbers. Growth is the people who you invite into your organization feeling part of something, a higher calling that they bring their full self, their full gifts to. So scaling, I would call growth, and I would call growth as a sign of vibrancy of your business model.
I love that. And grow, Barry-Wehmiller has done under your leadership. It's just been incredible. Bob, I want to just give the entire conversation some context for those who are not familiar with Barry-Wehmiller. You joined this old company back in 1969. You became CEO of it 6 years later. Can you just give the listeners a sense of how you have scaled in the context of the numbers, revenues, employees, number of locations you're now operational in, and as I say, that provides nice context for the rest of the conversation.
Yes, when I stepped into the company from Price Waterhouse, I joined a $18 million, 90-year-old company that was based on building equipment for the brewing industry. That was its history. That's where the innovation had been in the early 1900s. And so my first reaction was to step into that business model and try to capture the value of it. Took a number of initiatives to grow. We got into solar energy, we got into filling systems for beverage, and we got into electronic inspection systems. And so we started growing from 18 million to 72 million, but the company hadn't grown in decades. And so it was very exciting, but we actually couldn't handle the growth because it was so, again, 18 to 72 million was dramatic. So we kind of got out over our ski tips with excitement, solar energy, and all these things. And in 1983, we had a series of issues developed with each of those growth initiatives, and they were with major corporations, so they had a lot of validation. And we had a financial crisis. Our banks pulled on us suddenly, despite supporting our growth, being right by our side. When we hit with the wall financially, there was some inventory issues. The banks pulled on me. Now, I would say to your listeners, from my greatest challenges has come my greatest growth. Okay, so that crisis, as a result of growing faster than we were capable of growing because of these new initiatives, we got through. We had 9 months where we lived day to day on the checks that came in, and we were just on life support.
I can relate.
We eventually got refinanced in the fall of '84, and this was a pivotal moment for me. I tried to take what I inherited, which is this business model serving the brewing industry with machines that wash returnable bottles and pasteurized beer, and I tried to take it and make it have a future. And then I added some product lines to it. But in 1984, after the financial challenge and experiencing that growth, experiencing the lack of support of our bankers, I went to my team, and this is really a pivotal moment. I said in the fall of 1984, guys, I'm proud of our history, but our history does not give us a future. Okay. That awakening, and I said, I'm an accountant. I'm not an engineer. I can't invent new products. So I said, we're going to go out and look for companies we can acquire that will give us a better future. And so it's a little bit like going shopping with no wallet. I mean, I had no money. Okay. I had no money, but I went out with the intention to look for some opportunities to get us into markets with a better future. And today that took that, what was 18 million to 72 million down to 55 million. Today we're 3.7 billion. We've our share price has grown 14% a year for the last 25 years. And Warren Buffett in that same period of time was like 9.6%. So I would, to your listeners, that revelation where I said, what got us here won't get us there. We need to look for new opportunities for a better future, which I could only do by acquiring businesses. And that 130 acquisitions later around the world, we now are strong. And the other thing I'd want your listeners to hear is if Ford designs a new truck, they drive it into the worst terrain, the worst conditions they can find to see how it holds up, the chassis, the engine, etc. Well, if you design a business model, which all leaders do, either intentionally or unintentionally, drive it into the 08, 09 economic crisis when companies of the caliber of General Electric fell apart, crashed. We entered 08, 09 with this business model I described to you a few minutes ago, and our share price went up 11%, and we let nobody go, and we got through it stronger, and we came out. So our business model was tested in the worst economic condition and passed the test with flying colors compared to General Electric and many others. So all leaders, regardless of the size of your company, there's a business model there that gives people the future. Again, it's not about inviting the right people on the bus. It's about building a safe bus, which is your business model, and then having leaders who know how to drive that bus safely and know where they're going. And then anybody you invite on the bus is going to be fine. Okay. So I don't hear that many times. Rarely do I hear people talking about their business model and how they're constantly making sure that it is a robust, that they learn from it and evolve it. So that's why, 130 acquisitions later, we've now got a $3.7 billion company, and we can bring that thinking to the companies that we have the privilege of adopting or acquiring around the world. We can bring that intentionality of a business model. And one of the things that I learned in the early age, and again, small or large, this is unrelated to size, is the word balance. Be careful not to be dependent upon any one market, any one customer, any one technology, because if something changes, like Polaroid cameras or Kodak cameras or NCR cash registers, many of the things that were dominant in our society that don't exist anymore. So we have a very balanced business today, intentionally designed, and it gives our people a sense of safety, which is what we owe people.
So let me just come to this just before I come on to the next question. How many are in your family? And I know you refer to the Barry-Wehmiller team as a family. How many at this stage, Bob?
12,000 people around the world.
12,000 people, which is just incredible. So I came across your book recently. We had your wonderful co-author Raj Sisodia on the show a number of weeks ago. And the book I'm holding up here for those that are listening, called Everybody Matters: The Extraordinary Power of Caring for Your People Like Family. From reading the book, I discern two distinct periods of Bob Chapman's leadership. there was the period of leadership when you took the helm in 1975 to 1997. Can you, and then there's kind of the Bob leadership style, tone, and the business model which you speak about post 1997. Can you just describe for our listeners what characterized your leadership and the business model prior to 1997?
Sure. Well, I have a very traditional education, undergraduate degree in accounting and MBA, and then I went into Price Waterhouse. So very traditional business education. And when I joined Barry-Wehmiller, it was weak. It had struggled to kind of reinvent itself to evolve with both technology and markets. And I brought this idea of organic growth and better financial performance, which it's about numbers, right? It's about growth and value creation, and in that environment, being financially responsible. It was about numbers, and this is what I want your listeners to hear. The way I was taught, the way I experienced initially in my career, I was always a nice, friendly guy. I was kind of the class clown in my high school, but I saw people as functions for my success. Okay, I was nice to them, but I needed an accountant. I needed a secretary. I needed a financial person. I needed these people for my success. Okay, and when I didn't need them, unfortunately, we let them go. It's just what we do. It's just part of being a leader. Is you got to be able to address that. So it was always about profitability, financial performance, and that's how we talked about it. Okay. And in 1997, as you described, I experienced a revelation. That day, I realized I had a series of I didn't read a book. Nobody coached me. I wasn't having a problem. We were doing perfectly fine. But the lens through which I saw people was reversed. Because I was at a wedding and I saw two young people getting married and how everybody thought they were so precious. And my mind went to, oh my God, all 12,000 of our people around the world are just like that young man and young lady, brought into this world by parents, hoped that their child would have a chance to be who they're intended to be. And I had them in my care for 40 hours a week. And the way I would treat them would profoundly affect their life. And so that lens through which most of us see people, again, I was a nice guy. We had a nice company, and we were doing well with this strategy I had. But the lens that I saw people were functions. Okay. I described Joe's an engineer. Mary's my new executive assistant. Bill runs our marketing department. Okay. But when you see people not as a function, and you see them as somebody's precious child, and you treat them the way you would want your child treated, it changes everything. And that's what happened in 1997. I went from seeing people, and the company was doing well. Again, we didn't have a problem. But the lens through which I saw the 12,000 people in our organization and my responsibility as the leader profoundly changed to seeing people as somebody's precious child, knowing the way I treat them would affect their health and the way they would go home and treat their spouse and their kids. And remember, 90% since that transformation, and we began teaching people how to be leaders, how to care, 90%, we just wanted to be better stewards of these people. I had no idea. I was never told in my journey, and I'm sure your listeners have never been told, that the way I would treat people in my organization would affect their health, their marriage, and their relationship with their children. But 90% of the feedback we get when we teach people to be truly human leaders is our team members come back and say, my marriage has never been better, and my relationship with my kids. So I believe business could be the most, at every size, this is not a size issue, at every size, if we see people as our purpose, not economic gain, okay? Because we call it people, purpose, and performance. It starts with our fundamental responsibility to the people that we invite into the organization to give them a future around a purpose that inspires them to share their gift. And then we have to create value. If we are not creating value, we cannot be good to our people because the organization will fail.
This resonates so, so strongly. I just want to pause for a moment because this speaks so loudly to our 10 principle ScaleX framework. First of all, your psyche and the 10 P's, the 10 principles are all P's. The first principle is psyche. It's the mindset of the leader. It's the mental lens, as you've described, by which we see the world, by which we interpret the world, by which we interact with the world. And you had a fundamental shift by how you viewed the world. And I just, again, want to put this in context for our listeners. The business, if I recall from reading the book, the business at this stage was you were doubling in size. It was your significant acquisition. You were going from just over $100 million to acquiring a company that was just over $100 million. It was going to double the size of the business. So, at this point in time, you had this profound change in the way you viewed the world. And what I would often say is, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. So you have this profound shift, you see the world differently, and the business goes on to deliver now delivering another 3.5 billion on top of the 200 million that was there at that stage. So this isn't about sacrificing financial performance because you're going to wrap your arms around your people. It's actually the performance, as we understand it, is a byproduct, and a significant byproduct of the way in which you view the world. So you speak, first of all, the psyche, the very first principle. You speak to the second principle, purpose and vision. You speak to the third principle of our ScaleX framework, which is people. So I just want to kind of cap that or draw a line and highlight that for our listeners. Post 1997, when you talk about business model, the traditional kind of language around business model is, if you take a technology company, it's, instead of selling enterprise licenses, software licenses, we now have this SaaS business model, so software as a service, and we change our pricing, and also your business model will take in the market you sell into and the geography you sell into. But what I'm hearing is something that's much wider than that. When you talk about business model, Bob, are you talking about the culture that encases how you transact business? Am I picking that up correct?
Now, the business model, we designed a business model in 1988 after my challenges of the 80s that would give our stakeholders, in this case, because it was mainly our stakeholders, the financial people, that's where I began, and that would give them a good future. And it was around balance. So I wanted as much recurring revenue as I could, because that's predictable, which is aftermarket, spare parts, field service, upgrades. And I wanted to make sure that I designed a business model that wasn't dependent upon any one technology, any one customer, because when things change, we had one of my challenges in the 80s, we were highly dependent on a major brewery that we'd worked with since early 1900s, and somebody retired and somebody else was promoted, and everything changed. We didn't change at all. We'd been supplying them for decades. And one day they told me that they were going to change suppliers, and it almost killed our company. I said, I've got to build a business model that our people are safer. And so I said, in this new model, we're going to be more diverse, okay? And we're going to focus on recurring revenue, which is highly predictable, on top of the capital goods behind the big equipment. So the culture, and again, and when I had this revelation, I felt that we needed to start teaching people how to care for others, okay? Because in our business schools, we teach accounting and finance and marketing and law and economics and et cetera, but we don't teach caring. And so we started teaching caring. So again, The business model was robust. It was performing. We were putting 85 octane fuel in that engine. When we had this revelation that everybody working for us is somebody's precious child, and we could have a profound impact on their life. Because again, prior to that date, I was never told, never heard, never occurred to me that the way I'd run Barry-Wehmiller would affect people's personal lives. But again, 90% of the feedback today we get is the impact on our culture, on their personal lives, and the healing power on marriages. And if marriages are better, kids are seeing better behavior in their parents, and they're learning from this what they see, not what they told. So again, it's profound. And so we put in 91 octane, and all of a sudden, we started even performing better. I mean, some people will say to me, "What does it cost to care?" And I said, "What?" To me, that's, we don't debate safety. We say we want to create safe environment. I mean, it's just amazing to me. People, first thing he says, "I'm not sure I can afford to care for people." And I said, it's astounding to me that this, to me, guess what? When people share their gifts fully with you, when they feel cared for.
Well, let's come on to that, Bob. So yes, so that makes absolute sense, and this again resonates very strongly. We termed, having navigated through the global recession, we termed it, with the benefit of hindsight, the best recession that ever happened, because actually we were dependent on one particular industry in one particular region where we were very strong, and post that actually we diversified into 5 different industry sectors and actually set up 8 strategic regions across the globe, which give us this wonderful opportunity not only to mitigate the risk of a future recession, but actually a great opportunity to actually scale the business into this kind of 5x8 grid, if you like. When you talk about the business being safer, what I'm hearing is it's more robust in that there's much more security for your team. Now, you mentioned something that you teach people to care, you teach leaders to care. Can you share with our listeners what you mean by that? Because that's the difference between the 85 octane fuel and the 91 octane fuel. So how do we go from the 85 to the 91 through caring? What does that look like practically?
Well, quick context setting. In about 20 years ago, a young man who just joined our firm and I were having dinner because we were out exploring this author who wrote a good book on leadership. And he asked me a question nobody would ever ask me who knew me. He said, "What is your greatest fear, Bob?" Now, this is a brand new team member, young, and I'm an eternal optimist. And so I paused a minute and I said, "My greatest fear is that we were blessed with a message that could heal the world, and it would die with me." So we got up the next morning for breakfast, and I said, "Okay, Brian, you surfaced something that I hadn't even thought about." And I said, "What do great religions do to survive over decades? They articulate their beliefs, and they have disciples who embrace those beliefs and tell stories that bring those beliefs to life." So I said, this is all at breakfast. I said, "Okay, Brian, how do you think we should create disciples who will carry it?" So it's not Bob's belief. It's not Barry-Wehmiller's belief. It's all of our belief. Every one of your listeners and me, this is what leaders do. Okay. And I said, "Well, we can't send them back to universities because we don't teach leadership. We teach management." Okay. And to me, management is the manipulation of others for your success. Leadership is the stewardship of the lives that you have the privilege of leading. Dramatically different views on that position of power. And so we came back and we said, "Okay, we're going to create our own university because we can't send people back to learn to care." And the team came up and said, "Okay, well, what are we going to teach?" And they came up, this eclectic group came up with what has turned out to be the most powerful, transformative educational experience in the world. The first thing we taught was empathetic listening. It never would have occurred to me that that is the foundation for leadership. That is the foundation for caring at home, at work, and in the world. And so they designed a 3-day class on empathetic listening. And I was traveling because I thought that was crazy to do that. And I was traveling, and a young lady in Minneapolis came up to me and said, "Mr. Chapman, I just took your university class on listening." I said, "Great. What was it like?" I had no idea. And she said, "It changed my life." I said, "It changed your life?" She said, "Yes, I now know how to raise my 2-year-old daughter." Now that touched me so deeply. I began flying around the country and listening to people who are taking our classes. And almost nobody said I ran a better accounting department, I ran a better sales department. They talked about I wouldn't be divorced now. My teenage daughters are talking to me. And the second class we taught, which adds to that, is called Recognition and Celebration. How do you let people know they matter in thoughtful, timely, appropriate ways? Which was a powerful class because people want to know they matter. And just like listening is a skill, recognition is a teachable skill. Okay. And the third was culture of service, seizing the opportunity to serve others, moving from a me-centric world, it's all about me and my career, to a we-centric world where we care about each other. We care about our own careers, but we care about our careers in the context of caring for others. And so we started teaching these classes, and it was transformative. So and again, I just wanted to create disciples. I had no idea that people would tell us how it changed their life. And if your listeners heard the stories that I've heard over the last 20 years, they would be sobbing. The healing power of leaders is unbelievable. It's not just about we've had 4% organic growth and our EBITDA multiple is X, which is the language of business. Okay. I speak around the world, 54 speeches around the world last year in every part of society, and people cry when they hear our message because it so touches with what's wrong with this world right now. We don't have a poverty of money. We have a poverty of dignity because people don't feel valued. They feel used. Okay. And when they feel used, you create a sense of humiliation because you don't feel valued. And when you don't need them anymore, we discard them. Okay. Which is, so I believe without question now, given the feedback, given the success of our book around the world, success of the Harvard case study around the world, the validation of the people that respond to this message, that this message could heal the issues that we face in this world and heal the families, raise kids in healthier families where parents know how to care for each other. Their parents come home from where they work feeling invigorated, not drained. So again, remember, there's a 20% increase in heart attacks on Monday mornings when people have to go back to work. Okay. 88% of all people in this country feel they would give up a salary increase if they could fire their boss. Okay. 60, so I mean, and I learned, this is important for your listeners, the person you report to at work is more important to your health than your family doctor. Think about that.
Yeah, it's incredible, and again, it aligns so strongly with our own work because I often use the metaphor of dropping a pebble into a pond. That the leadership is that pebble, and depending on the style, tone, quality of that leadership, the ripple is moving out, and that ripple will either have a positive impact or a negative impact. In the context of SMEs, I was sharing with you before we started, more than 90% of businesses by volume are SMEs, and more than 70% of the workforce are working in SMEs. And as you rightly say, the quality and impact of people's lives are being impacted by the leaders that they are interfacing with and interacting with on a daily basis. Something that I'm curious about in the context of purpose and meaning, we're saying essentially 88% of people are disengaged, but the proxy for that is the fact that they would fire their bosses, so they're clearly disengaged. How do you guys at Barry-Wehmiller connect and give meaning and purpose to your team members and connect that with Barry-Wehmiller's purpose?
Well, our purpose is articulated in our core belief that we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. Okay, that is our, and that's how we talk about our business. I'll just give you another analogy. I was being interviewed by Washington University organizational development professors, two of them, about an hour and a half interview. And at the end of the interview, they said, "You're the first CEO we have ever talked to that never talked about your product." And I paused a minute and I said, "I've been talking about our product for the last hour and a half. It's our people. I won't go to my grave proud of the machinery we build for the major companies in the world. I'll go to my grave proud of the people who built that machinery." It completely caught him off guard because we define our businesses as our product, okay? And we define our success by numbers. And we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. And the good news to you listeners, and we didn't do this knowing that all this, the revelations caused me to change my lens, which caused us to do this because we weren't having a problem. We were actually growing and very healthy. But it's amazing how our customers have reacted to this, okay? Because they feel it through the way they're treated by our team members. I gave a big speech in one of our industries recently, and one of our largest customers wanted a private luncheon with me after my speech. And we thought it was going to be talking about technical issues or, commercial issues. And I walk into this room totally prepared, to deal with whatever comes. And there were 6 of these senior leaders from this major corporation. And the gentleman, the leader said, "Mr. Chapman, we have been studying you for 6 years. In fact, I have probably given out 1,000 of your books. It has transformed our business. And we just want you to know what it means to us, what your leadership has meant to us." Our team was astounded because we had no idea this large customer had embraced truly human leadership and then make a dramatic, and this is a, 40, $50 billion company. And I would say to you that people want to do business with people they trust. People want their interaction with your people to be positive. When people feel valued, when they feel aligned to your message, they behave differently internally and externally with your customers because they feel they're valued. It's not the profitability of the number of sales calls they made or the profitability. So making people your purpose and making sure you've got a business model where they are safe, where they have a future, where they feel valued, we could heal the brokenness in the world. And so your podcast today could be with your range of people that listen to you. If everybody were to embrace these principles, and I am not, if we did an intelligence test, I would be a very average intelligence, okay?
You're very
what
modest.
I'm blessed with, what I'm blessed, I was raised in a public school. I got average grades. I would say to you, my blessing is common sense. That's what I was blessed with. And creativity and a positive attitude. If you blend those 3 together, common sense, creativity, and positive attitude, that is what has created this $3.5 billion company. That is what we bring, okay? And it's amazing what gifts people will give you. And we don't do this to get more out of our people. We do this as a sense of responsibility as stewards of their life for 40 hours a week, okay? And again, if you could hear the stories I have heard and the tears that people express it with, I mean, Raj Sisodia wrote the book when he saw it because he said, "Bob, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen grown men and women drawn to tears to say what it's like." And, also another thing for your listeners, Simon Sinek brought in a gentleman named who was involved in the Pentagon, General Flynn from the Pentagon in military leadership. And he spent a day talking to our people. And he sat down with me. This is a very insightful gentleman. He wrote the foreword to Simon's book. He said, people described their experience at Barry-Wehmiller when I talked to them as a family. He said they did not describe it like a family. They described it as a family. And he said that really caught my attention over the course of the day, talking to a variety of people. And I said, isn't that interesting, General Flynn? Because none of these people are actually related to each other. But if we think of our society and we think about the word family, what does it mean? Does it mean I'm related to you? Or does it mean the place of ultimate care and safety? And I said, so people, without even thinking about it, use the word family. This is a family because they feel safe and they feel cared for. Okay. So we've taken what we hope is at home, and we created it for 40 hours a week.
Yes. So I want to come to this. So typically, I always invite my guests to deliver value, and you've delivered incredible value. I'm conscious of time, but just on an editing note, how are you, Bob, for time? Are you okay if we run over a little bit? Because I'd love to run a playbook. What's your hard stop?
There's no hard stop for changing the world.
Oh, you're amazing, Rob. This is brilliant. So, what I'd love to do, Bob, is host a little mini masterclass on the playbook as you describe it in your book. So, if we use the example of you acquiring a new company in the morning, this company is not familiar with the Barry-Wehmiller leadership principles at all. It's very typical of many companies out there. A challenging culture, perhaps. A focus on the bottom line, strong focus on the numbers. The culture, maybe even more extreme than what you described pre-1997 in terms of the Barry-Wehmiller culture. When you go in there, what is the playbook to actually get them aligned to the Barry-Wehmiller culture? So you have the playbook outlined in your book, and I encourage everyone out there to go and grab a copy. But if we start with the envisioning the ideal future, share with our listeners what you mean by that.
Well, when we have the chance to adopt another company, again, we've adopted 130 companies from India to China to Italy to Serbia to South Carolina. So this is not a one-off, 130 adoptions. The first thing we say to them is, we believe in you. And together, we have a good future. And people come to tears because they'll make this statement: I never thought I was going to get to work for a company that cared about me. Okay. So our first message is a human message. We're in this to give you a better future. And in my early days, 90% or more of our adoptions were companies that were struggling. Because why? Because when I designed this business model, I realized that in the 80s, when I struggled with our historic business, I learned to fix it. So what was my skill? Fixing businesses that were challenged in certain ways. I can't change. I can't go out and change a .com, a software company, but there were certain businesses with certain qualities that I felt I could fix through leadership. And so we walk in and we say, we're here because we believe in you and we have a future together. Now let's go have some fun. And the emotional reaction is dramatic. Okay. And because there's so much available on the internet in terms of our message and our reputation now, I would say to you that almost every adoption acquisition we do, our culture is a material factor to the company that we're talking to. They want the best for their people. They don't know how, and they have been unable to do it. So our culture, and again, the other byproduct is, you can't believe the quality of the talent that's joining our company now. As we've reached scale, 3.5 billion, that people say, I looked at your website, I saw your values. If those are true, that's the place I want to work. And then I have listening sessions around the world with new team members, and I ask them, okay, you've now been a part of the company 3 months, 6 months. What's it like? And they said, better than I even thought.
That's incredible.
And so I would say to you, they feel safe. It releases them to be more free to help others. You know, here's a little buzz. The bad news about COVID, it was highly contagious. The good news about caring, it's even more contagious than COVID, which I had no idea. When we began caring for you, we realized you started naturally caring for others. When you feel safe and valued and cared for, it releases in you the natural capacity to care for others. That's the only way I can explain it, because that's the feedback. People are willing to help each other. They're not protecting their jobs. They're not kind of hiding from a boss who's going to degrade them. As somebody said to me, before you acquired our company, Mr. Chapman, I'd get 10 things right and I'd never hear a word. I'd get one thing wrong and I'd get my ass chewed out. He said, and nobody ever asked me what I thought. They told me what to do. You are the first leader who's ever asked me what I thought. And when you ask me what I think, it dramatically impacts how I feel about myself.
So the leaders that you adopt through your acquisitions, I love that language. The acquisition seems a little bit more mercenary, doesn't it? Adoption seems,
right.
Yeah, that it's much more paternal or maternal in its
Wouldn't it be
language.
horrible to describe a marriage as, I acquired a wife?
Yeah, exactly this. You're adopting these companies and these wonderful people whom through your care and through your value, actually you support them in their own growth, and in turn the company grows as a result. Do your leaders, do they attend the university? Do they attend? So
yes, it's designed for well, we started off with, from ground zero, and we said, we're going to feed the hungry. We want the people to take the class who want to take it. We're not going to require it initially. We want to feed the hungry, the early adopters. And that's how we began. We brought people in from around the world, and they came in from different parts of the world, and they built incredible relationships in going through these courses together. I mean, and again, at graduation from the university, I'd say, tell me who you're going to tell about this experience, and what are you going to tell them? And they would get teary-eyed. I'm going to tell my father, who always wanted me to be, good to other people, and I now have a chance. So all this does, it's just this constant feedback that encourages. And again, how could it be that an accountant was blessed with a message that could heal the world? Again, how could it be? Because somebody has chosen us. There's nothing about my education, there's nothing about my family life that can explain why we have created something that the entire world is watching. The world is watching, from major corporations to small corporations, and the interest in our message is unbelievable around the world. So I would say to you that caring for the people you have the privilege of leading is not about being nice any more than parenting is about being nice. It is about doing the right thing for the people you have the privilege of leading. And parenting and leadership is identical. Okay, what's parenting? The stewardship of these precious lives that come into our families through birth, adoption, or second marriage that we all take very seriously. What is leadership? The stewardship of those precious lives of people that walk in our building every day around the world, who simply want to know they matter and that they have a future in your care. And that is the profound responsibility of leadership, okay? Not management. And remember, we have never sold a company. You don't sell your kids when they do real well, okay? And we adopt companies, and we open up an organization around the world that are proud to be a part of this culture. You can't believe the emotions we see from people and the stories we hear that would fill your listeners' hearts with hope, that This is the message we need in every part of our society, from hospitals to education to government to business.
What would
We need to see people as we need to see the people as our purpose. And we need to make sure we have a business model that gives them a sense of safety and security and value.
so the business model makes complete sense to me in terms of mitigating the risk of another crisis and giving yourself wonderful scope to grow into. And on the caring side, for a lot of the SME leaders listening to this, they might say, well, that's fine. You know, Bob's leading this multi-billion-dollar organization. It's fine for him to say that they're incredibly profitable. You know, I'm under pressure to get cash in, to make the payroll. This all sounds a little bit Pollyanna-ish. You know, really what I want to do is go out on the factory floor and put a rocket up people's backsides. We need to get product out, get cash in for me to make payroll. What does caring look like practically? What's your appeal to leaders listening to this right now in terms of their next interaction with one of their team members, Bob?
Well, putting a rocket up the backside does not do anything other than destroy lives. Okay. And if your standard of care is treating those people you have the privilege of leading, not the job of leading, the privilege of leading, and treating them no less than you'd like your son or daughter treated, would you go out and put a rocket up the backside of your daughter or your son if you wanted them to be who they're intended to be? Or would you want to inspire them and create an environment? Because we don't need to put a rocket up anybody, okay? The financial results are the results of a good business model embraced by people who genuinely care for each other. And again, our share price has gone up 14% a year, compounded for 25 years, okay? And our performance was amplified. We didn't do it to improve performance. We did it because we were awakened by these revelations to another way of looking at leadership in the world. Not what I was taught, not what I observed, not what I practiced, but a totally different way of looking at leadership, okay? Which is the stewardship of the lives you have the privilege of leading, treating them with respect and dignity, knowing that if you do so, they will go home and treat their spouse better and their children better and have healthier lives. I don't know how, I have never had anybody at Harvard, McKinsey, Stanford, and my 54 talks around. Nobody has ever debated what I just said to you. Never. Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Because if I walk outside and I point out the moon that's out there, you wouldn't debate there's a moon, but that doesn't mean you know how to get there. Okay. The problem is nobody debates that this is what we need in the world. The question is not what we teach in our universities and our education, and is not what we practice in our businesses, because that's not what we're taught. We're taught the success in life is money, power, and position. And it doesn't matter how you get it as long as it's illegal, because then you can write checks to charities and everybody say, oh, what a wonderful family, what a wonderful individual. Okay. And they'll never ask you how you got it. Okay. Did you treat people with respect and dignity? So I say to business leaders and your audience, the greatest act of charity is not the checks we write. The greatest act of charity is how we treat the people we have the privilege of leading.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here. And you know, again, the message really resonates as the parent, the father of three teenagers, two teenage daughters and one son. And I can share with you my eldest daughter's high functioning autism. She's made that public. She hosts her own podcast to help guide teenagers through the neurotypical world, which I'm delighted with. And she inspires me every day. But I came across a wonderful acronym for parenting many years ago. It was the CAM acronym. And C stands for communicate, A stands for advise, L stands for listen, and M stands for modeling, and modeling being the most impactful. Now, what I found on a personal level in order to support my daughter is a level of change and inner work in order to create an environment for her to flourish and develop and grow. Now that takes a huge amount of time and effort and self-awareness to arrive at that point. How do your leaders cultivate, or how is that self-awareness within your leaders cultivated, Bob? Because it does require a huge amount of work. You will attest to that. You had a profound insight and you changed the lens by which you see the world. But for a lot of people, there's work required to see the world through that lens. Can you speak to that?
Okay, so I love the story of your daughter and your focus on allowing her to be who she's intended to be, to bring in her gifts to the world. But everyone in your listeners' organization are just like your daughter. We all have different issues. Your daughter has particular autism issues. Other people have other issues. Some people have limited educational abilities. Some people, and remember, I would say to you, name anything in life that's worthwhile, that's easy. You say it's hard to be a leader, you're damn right it's hard. But the sense of meaning and purpose and fulfillment is the greatest payback you will ever have in your life. When people say to you, you've dramatically changed my life, my marriage is better, what amount of pay or bonus could somebody give you compared to people saying, I was asked to speak at the weapons school at the United States Air Force, where they teach the Top Gun pilots. And so here's outside business. Here's the United States Air Force, considered one of the best leadership models. And I said to this group of squadron commanders who fly these $130 million jets, unbelievably talented young men and women, I said, give me a great example of leadership in the United States Air Force. And the commander of the base was sitting there, and 13 squadron commanders. And the commander had actually brought his wife in to hear me. And I thought they'd say, well, this 4-star general, he's been incredible to work for. We're really privileged to have him. Because I thought the protocol of the Air Force would cause that to be the case. Nope. One squadron commander said, I had a great leader 10 years ago. And I said, what made him a great leader? He said, I think he actually cared about me. Okay. And you could hear a pin drop in that room. Nobody knew what to say. And so I would, in every part of society, people simply want to know they matter. And leaders, whether it's you with your daughter, but also the other two kids, they have just as much needs as she does. And okay, it's just different. You've got to flex your leadership as a parent to the particular personality and issues of each child. Okay. That's a lot of work. Can I treat them all the same? No. We know that we are all unique, created uniquely different. And there's no one size fits all in leadership. You have to flex to the issues that every person has in your organization. But by doing so, and the greatest of all gifts, and as Cam starts to communicate, nope, it starts with an L. Listening is the greatest of all gifts you could give your daughter, your kids, the people on your podcast, is to listen to them, not to debate, not to judge, but to validate their worth and to understand what they're saying, because that is the greatest gift. So I would say to you, yes, it's a lot of work. Living lives of meaning and purpose is a lot of work, but once you get into that groove, it will fill your heart with joy and passion that you never knew. And again, it's contagious. When you touch the life of one person, they touch the lives of two. All I can say is we operate in, I don't know how many different cultures around the world. And from China to India, the foundation is people simply want to know they matter. And as a leader, when you listen to them and validate their worth, the feedback is not going to be your pay or your compensation. The stories people will say, and again, you can't be good to those people in your care unless you have a good business model, Because if you've been really nice and you walk up and say, sorry, but we got to cut 10 people and you're the 10 people, you're going to really hurt those people. So that sense of responsibility for you as a parent to your precious daughter and kids, what if you brought that to all the people you had to work for? You say, oh, gee, that'd be a lot of work. What is the alternative to caring? It's what we have in this society, which is using people to achieve goals that are measured by financial numbers, okay? Again, we are more known for our culture in the world than when we are our product, because our product is our people, okay? We need an economic model to be good to people, but whether we're in, and that's what Raj got. I mean, Raj, when I first asked him to be my co-author, he said to me, Bob, it sounds like you've got a nice company, but I can't write a book about every nice company. And I said, well, Raj, maybe, I didn't really know Raj. I said, well, someday if you want to visit, fine. So like 4 or 5 months later, Raj called me and said, I'd love to take you up on that visit. And Raj is brilliant. And he came in and spent 2 days talking to our people. And he said, Bob, this is a message that has to be written, and I'm going to write it. Because I always thought a conscious business was one around the products and services, but this is around the people. And he partnered with me, and Everybody Matters, and he shaped the message. And then he wrote a book stimulated by this called The Healing Organization,
Yep.
How organizations can be a source of healing in the world, which was stimulated by what he saw in our company. So again, I'm not bringing to your audience an academic theory. I'm sharing the blessings I've been given through revelations of the world the way it was intended to be, where we genuinely care about the people we have the privilege of leading at home, at work, and in our communities. And when we see people not as functions, but as we see people as somebody's precious child, and knowing that the way we treat them will profoundly impact their life, it changes everything. But we can't ask people to care. We have to teach them how to care. And that's why we're working now in education, because education is usually academic skills. Remember, in America, we have the most prosperous economy in our history. The wealth creation is amazing. And we have the highest level of depression, anxiety, and suicide we've ever had. Why? We have prosperity. People are buying homes, cars, goods, taking vacations, because they don't feel valued. They feel used. They don't know it. But again, depression, anxiety, and suicide is at rampant levels. People are quitting companies, the great resignation, because they have more opportunities for jobs now. They have more freedom to quit and get out of broken. But the problem is finding a good society, a good place to work is almost impossible, because most businesses are around economic measures of success, not human measures.
What are some great questions that we can pose to our team members when we're sitting with them to demonstrate, to show that we care, and to give us an opportunity to truly listen?
Well, the ability to show you care is how the questions you ask them. Okay, we tend to talk to people. I always thought when you cared for people, you went over and talked to them. It turns out when you care for people, you go over to listen to them. So the greatest advice of bringing caring into your leadership model is learning how to listen. And it is a skill, just like accounting or finance or any other skill, athletic skills. It is a skill that can be learned, and it is it is the single most powerful thing we've learned. And the second thing is that shows you care. And then the question is, how do you recognize and celebrate the goodness in others? And that cadence of caring. And again, in a business model, I encourage you, what is your business model? And when you invite people into it, how will they have a sense of safety in the future so they can share your gifts with you and go home each night feeling comfortable to bring a child into this world, to buy a home, to educate their kids? Because they need to look at you and trust that you have designed a business model that you've invited them into that gives them a sense of safety in the future. And they will share gifts with you they didn't even know they had. Okay. You don't do it for that reason. You do it because your precious daughter, someday you're going to want her part of an organization that cares about her and treats her uniquely to her gifts and etc. And so I would say to you, it's how we look at our sense of responsibility to the people. Again, we measure most of our businesses by our revenue, our profitability, our growth, our market share, not are we being good to the people we have the privilege of leading.
In 2002, you created the Barry-Wehmiller Guiding Principles of Leadership. Now, much of what we've spoken about is enshrined in those guiding principles of leadership. Something that struck me, because you highlight this in your book as marking the moment in our company's history when we awakened to who we were meant to be, to our unique purpose in the world. I love these. You know, we start off with, we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. And it begins with a clear and compelling vision embodied within a sustainable business model which fosters personal growth. Is there anything in the guiding principles of leadership that we haven't touched on, Bob, that you would like to mention?
Well, I think the word trust is embedded in that. You know, and again, the guiding principle of leadership was not an intentional exercise. We had, as a result of the revelations, we had tried some new ideas to bring fun and engagement in it, and just to make it fun. And we found out joy increased 1,000%, performance improvement. We just wanted people to have fun. So after a couple of years of doing this, I said, we need to get together. There's something going on here. There's something bigger than just this. So we brought this very thoughtful group of team members who were experienced in various ways together. And we said, what's happening here? Why are we getting this feedback? And we started writing things down. And that guiding principle of leadership, and I looked up and I said, oh my God, these are guiding principles of leadership. This is, you know, our government in America is based on the Constitution our founding fathers created. What is the Constitution of your business? Okay. So we are blessed because that gathering, unintended outcome of creating the guiding principles of leadership, gave us a constitution of our values. Okay. And it was going out. And again, when we created that document, our chief people officer said to me, Bob, a lot of people have good values on the walls. They don't live them. And I took that as a challenge. And I said, I'm not going to put them on the wall. I'm going to put them in people's heads and hearts. And we went out and I started sharing these visions and asking for people. And what people told me was amazing. It was amazing what people would say when they felt safe and valued, so we could make changes. So I would say the guiding principle of leadership is the foundation. If an organization doesn't have their version of what are our values, okay, kind of like the Constitution of the United States, how do you make decisions if you don't have a constitution that guides you in decision? That document led us to the 0809 decision not to let anybody go, because we said our guiding principle of leadership is we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. And if we let people go in 0809, we're going to dramatically hurt people, and we can't do that. So that document, which is online, anybody can see it, is the foundation upon which we make decisions. Okay. Stewardship, just like the Constitution guides America in making our decisions about what is right and what is wrong. So that foundational document was very important in shaping the company we've become. I don't know where we would be without it. I mean, we're doing a lot of nice things, but we kind of moved from one nice thing that this gave us the backbone of a constitution of caring.
I love that. Don't put them on the wall, put them into people's heads and hearts. What you're saying there is make sure as leaders you're living the values, not laminating them. So I want to switch lanes for a moment, because it would be remiss of me when I have you here, a leader who has acquired 130 companies, which we haven't even spoken about. I've never had anyone on the podcast who has that depth of experience in the context of acquisitions. Could you take a moment to share with our listeners who are contemplating acquisitions as part of their scaling vision, What is your playbook for acquisitions, Bob?
Our playbook is always when we look at spaces we want to be in, okay, that we either want to add to. So, for example, when we bought a company in the corrugated industry, we looked all around it for other companies in that would add to it and create a better balance, et cetera. So I would say to you, I spoke at Washington University on acquisitions. We did some research, and I think it's 75% of all acquisitions fail to achieve. It's like new product development, highly, because people get this acquisition momentum. We got to pay what we got to pay to get it, and then I hope it works out. And they don't have a play pattern. I always say sports teams on the sideline have a play pattern. They're going to go out based upon the other team, and they're going to play a particular pattern to score points. So I say, when you adopt a company, what is your play pattern, and what gives you a feeling that play pattern with this company is going to give you a future? So it's not just about we're going to pay 2 times earnings or 10 times multiple, or or we had to bid this. Bringing discipline, because when we get it wrong, when we acquire a company for a price that doesn't work out, it creates a very negative feeling, and usually people suffer if we get it wrong. Okay, so our unique play pattern is, I would say to you, I'm going to go back. I have good common sense, creativity, and passion, and I've been able to see value where other people don't. I mean, I've saved many businesses that were going out of business because I saw their potential. It's kind of like seeing the potential in an individual that others don't see. So we see that in companies. So it's hard to describe it other than you got to know that you're going to be able to create a better future for the people, so you can stand up in front of the people, the company, and say, we are privileged to step into a position of adopting your company. Together we have a future. Welcome to the family. And if you can't say that and articulate exactly what you're going to do when they start to play, then you need to step back, because you can't be good stewards of these lives unless you know exactly what you're going to do. So again, 130 acquisitions around the world. And again, our share price could not have gone up 14% a year compounded for 25 years unless they had worked. So clearly 90% of our acquisitions work. A few struggle, and it's usually not the business or the vision. It was the particular leader just couldn't embrace the values. So again, we defied the odds. And the other thing I had mentioned, 88% of all people feel they work for a company that doesn't care about them. Washington University and Georgetown did a study with academic rigor and found that 79% of all of our people feel we care about them. So massively different than the general population. And again, it's usually not the failure of our theory about an acquisition. It's the leader just didn't rise to the occasion that we thought he had the potential. So picking the right leaders and giving them the right play pattern is the key to do this. And again, we believe that by bringing these other companies into our portfolio, we're opening up churches in new parts of the world. And again, it's just like a faith grows. This is a chance for us to share this message of caring. I have got 6 minutes left until another interview. What in the 6 minutes we have left, what could I share with you that would make you smile as big as you smile?
I smile a lot through this, and thank you for that. You've been overly generous, and I've indulged myself here having you in front of me. I always close the podcast and pose this question, Bob, given the depth of experience that you have, more than any other leader that I've had on the show, and I've had some incredible leaders on the show, you're living an incredibly rich life. Can you share with our listeners 3 timeless takeaways?
Yeah, I would say the takeaways is, first of all, I want you to know leadership is not a job any more than parenting is a job. It is a privilege. But to be a good parent, to be a good leader, you've got to have the skills to care. That number two. Number two, even as a family, we have a business model. We have a job that creates income, and then we take that income and we educate our kids and provide a home. So you have your own personal business model that is going to take you and your family to a place where you can be good stewards of them. So the second thing is you've got to stand back and say, what is my business model and how is it performing? And what have I learned that could make it better? That is a huge part of our success. We're constantly pausing, looking at our business model, looking around us and looking at other good business models and trying to make sure we're constantly, through the spirit of continuous improvement, which is the spirit of lean, how do we be better stewards of our business model? Because we can't be good to our people unless we've got a robust business model. And of course, the finally is the measure of success is not in monetary terms. It's the people whose lives you have the privilege of touching through your business, through your community, and your family. And and looking at life through the lens of serving others is the ultimate gift of joy that I think anybody can experience. When people say to you, "You've changed my life," and I hope for every one of your listeners, they are inspired by this to see their people as their purpose. Okay, that's the way I'd leave it.
I want to really thank you today sincerely for your wonderful energy, your generosity in sharing your experience, your incredible wisdom. If people want to find out more about Bob Chapman and Barry-Wehmiller, how best to connect and learn more about your work?
Well, I always tell people I was privileged probably 10, 11 years ago to do a TEDx talk.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Which has had about 260,000. So if you're interested in learning more, I would go back. There is an animated version that is better than the original. That's about 9 minutes long. An animator animated it. So I would go back and look at the animated version of my Air Force. It was at Scott Air Force Base TEDx talk. The second thing is that there must be 30 or 40 links to my speeches to graduate students, to organizations, to the United Nations that are on YouTube. So there's a lot of free material that you can listen to from the various audiences I speak to, and how does it resonate with you? So, and finally, the book is doing extremely well. You could obviously read the book because it was intended to be, Raj wrote it. The first third is called The Hero's Journey. That's what it's technically called. My journey from management to leadership. And then how to become a leader. So the second 2/3. So and then of course we've got the Chapman the Chapman Leadership Institute. There's a lot of material. So the amount of public information that's free is overwhelming.
Brilliant.
And then you can contact our Leadership Institute because, again, we're working with companies around the world to become more caring institutions. So the Chapman Foundation, Chapman and Co. Leadership Institute. You can look up the website, Chapman and Co. Leadership Institute. So
we'll put some links to that in the show notes, Bob, and anything else your team share with us. We'll link that into the show notes. Once again, Bob, I thank you sincerely. I wish you all the very best with the wonderful work and message that you're spreading. It's incredible. I wish I'd come across this earlier in my own career, but thankfully I found it now. So I look forward to staying in touch. Thanks, Bob.
Well, listen, let me know if I can do anything. If you get a compelling request from one of your listeners, you can email us. But we're trying to make the world a more caring place so that everybody's child, just like your three, has a chance to be who they're intended to be and appreciated for whatever that is. So we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. You're touching the lives of people. That's what we need to do. So thank you for the privilege.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Take care.